Pozdrav svima, welcome back. Now, if you're just wondering what Pozdrav svima means, it's hello to everyone. Now, I already did this video yesterday and today I was planning on editing, but I noticed the sound was terrible, so I have to redo it because in this video you're going to see how using the scraper you get the nice finish on the inside, or the best possible finish, let's say on oak. Some of the timbers will scrape better, some worse, some you just better off cutting instead of scraping. So but this video will be on oak because it's quite common timber and many of you have access to it. Now, for the oak that you see here, and this blank that we're going to use in this video has been drying in this shop for over 25 years, so it's well dry. My mom remembers this piece from the old shop. It was laying around here, so she remembers it roughly from 25 years ago, so give or take a few years, but it should be well dry and ready to be used, and it's quite stable, or it should be stable enough. So I'm going to use a screw chuck to hold the blank on the lathe. We have the hole here, and like I said, in this video I'll go a little bit more in depth on the inside where we're going to use a scraper and explain how I use scraper on the inside to get the best possible surface for sanding. So I'll just go through the outside real quick. So turn on the lathe slowly, feed it on, lock the spindle and tighten it up. So I'll just quickly shape the outside, and I'll try to give you a few of the close-up views and a little different views, let's say. So bring the speed up gradually, 1100 RPM, spindle gouge. I'll try to show you what I'm actually seeing, and when I'm holding my hand here on top of the gouge here, I'm not blocking the view of the very tip. I'm still protecting my face, let's say, from shavings. I'm using the safety glasses, but this just redirects the shavings down my hand. But this is actually what I'm seeing when I'm doing this. So I'm removing the corner first. So I'm only seeing the tip of the tool. Well, now I'm actually looking at the screen. So let's go shear cut here. That's nice and true. And let's true up this end. So just it's not sharp. So now we need to go across the bottom. So what I like to do is just clean up this area here a little bit. So here is now nice and smooth, and now I can ride the bevel. If I'm trying to ride the bevel on uneven surface, it just vibrates. This is just a little bit easier, let's say. So that's nice across the bottom. So now I have these dividers set for the step jaws, and I'm at the center height, or should be. Let's now raise the tool rest a little bit. So use this leg, do not touch the wood with the right leg of the caliper because it will catch and throw it out of your hands. I had at the beginning, very beginning, when I was trying to do this, if you're not careful, I did have one time this flying across the shop. So just be careful what you're doing if you're marking like this. So left leg is always on the wood. So you want to line up these two if you're doing it wrong, let's say, let's go here. So you can see now where the right line, scrub line is. So you need to divide that in half distance, and that's this one here. So we need to set the diameter of the foot first. Again, still spindle gouge, the rest goes down a little bit, and I can increase the speed now a little bit more, 1456. So now we need to get some sort of a shape here, and just to bring maybe a little bit more light down there. There we go. So that's now better for you to see. Ball gouge. Almost good. While I'm here, I'll actually reduce this a little bit more, and now get nice clean cut. There we go. So that's really nice surface and curve. I have a little hesitation line. Hope you can see it. Let's focus the camera on the proper spot. I hope you can see here a little bit like a line or white line here. That's a little hesitation mark where I stop with the gouge, if you noticed, just for a fraction of a second, just to allow the wood to come down to the tool, and I readjust my pressure with the gouge, so I'm not pushing in, so I don't get like this wobble from the wood here. So that little hesitation line will scrape away, even sand away with 180 grit without any issues. But we have this here that we need to scrape anyway, this corner here. So I have the refiner here, and with the burr straight from the grinder. So just blend it to curve. There we go. So that's now gone and ready for sanding all this area. You can see that's really lovely. But we need to do something with the bottom here. Again, the refiner. Now, before I remove the scribe line here, I'll use a 10mm spindle gouge. Make a slight dovetail foot. That will be a straight side foot without the bead or anything. And again, just refiner to get into a corner. A little line. There we go, so that's done. And Some of you asked about this notch on the scraper. This is again inspired by my mentor Richard Raffin, and this tool altogether is inspired by Richard shear scraper, and this corner will allow you to go shear scrape into, let's say, bottom of the bead, or you can use it to make a decoration. So it's a nice sharp point. So let's make, let's say, one step and the second one. So that's pretty good, and with a longer point I'll just crisp these corners here. Again, with a sharp point here I can go all the way into a corner. So that's pretty nice, and just soften this edge a little bit. So I'll quickly sand the outside and then we can focus on getting the inside, because a lot of you ask how to use a scraper on the inside of a bowl, get a surface good enough for let's say 180 grit, start to sand, and or even 120, because many of you had troubles with a scraper and how to actually scrape safely. So let me just quickly sand this first. Okay, so that's nicely sanded, really nice surface. So these are step jaws designed by, again, my mentor Richard Raffin. Really useful jaws, and on a VM100 VICMARK chuck. And I need to get myself the VM120 chuck with step jaws as well, to have another extra gripping options, let's say, for the bowls. So that's almost closed altogether. I think I need to adjust the calipers, maybe in the process of moving they shifted or anything like that, but it's nice and tight, won't go anywhere. So the first step, as always, is just to true up the top area here. Again, I'll use a spindle gouge. You see how that's effortless, it's nice and smooth. We can probably spin it a little faster, 1687 RPM. Now let's see about the rim that I want to do here. Let's go for a simple bowl, simple rim here, and we need start of the depth hole. Now some of you ask, why am I going deeper than the depth hole that I drilled here, let's say where I'm hollowing out? So the reason I'm putting a depth hole, for me at least, what it means is I'm always leaving myself a little buffer room, let's say. So beneath the depth hole, I know I have maybe 2-3 mil, depends on the bowl and everything, room to get the perfect curve on the inside. So that's how I look at it. And we'll just hollow this out with a bowl gouge. This is 12 mil diameter bowl gouge from Crown. So it's 1 horsepower servo motor on this Harvey lathe, but you see I've taken maybe 3/8 of an inch, something like that, of a wide cut, and it didn't bog down or slow down or anything. So in terms of the power, this lathe is excellent. So, and I've turned, and maybe I'll shoot a video of this as well, for the glass top cupola, for the cakes, you know, the base, wooden base from walnut. I believe it's 12-inch diameter, if I remember correctly, without any problems, so it didn't bog down or anything. So always I like to go with the gouge, let's say halfway down the bowl, and the rest, the bottom, I like to do with a scraper, but I'll show you here how I do the rim here as well with the scraper. So just go down here a little bit more. And you saw all this hollowing, I didn't have a dead grip here. You don't have to have dead grip on your gouges, because even that will constrict maybe the movement. You'll be more, let's say, stressed or fixed. You want to be loose and you know, relaxed when you're doing stuff like this. It's quite dusty stuff. Now I have, if you can see, or actually I'll reposition the camera and everything, but you may be able to see ridges, and these ridges are equal to the length of the bevel here that I have. But in this case I'm not worried about that, because I'm going to scrape the sides here as well. So I could pretty much sharpen the gouge, go one more time, get the perfect, like I said, I like to go halfway down the bowl of the inside with the gouge, get the best possible surface here, and then use the bottom half of the bowl with scraper's shape to a perfect curve. Now, I'm not usually having like 1 inch away tool rest from the wood here, but this is just for the sake of showing these angles. The first and foremost thing, the most important thing when using a standard scraper is negative 90 degrees. So whichever surface you're scraping, in this case we are scraping the rim here, or I'm just showing that. You always want to have that negative 90 degrees. If you have it over 90 degrees, you will align the grain with the cutting edge of your scraper and you will split the bowl. That's it's not fun. Just trust me on that. So whenever you're using standard scraper, have the handle higher. So this is just to show you a little exaggerated example. So this is a wooden square that I have, and the square in here is square, and so hopefully you see now we are level. So we are 90 degrees to the rim here, and the handle is level and the scraper is level, and you can scrape with that, but it's always best practice to have the handle raised up, so you have the gap. Hope you can see the light beneath the rim here and the straight edge here, square edge. So that's your safe zone. Now it's negative 90 degrees, and this is now top of your scraper, and surface we are scraping, which is the rim here, is less than 90 degrees. If I drop the handle down, you see the angle opens up here on top, and now you're in a danger zone. So wherever you drop the handle down, you will be in that danger zone. So best practice is always to have it lift up the handle, and that way you'll use it safely without any issues. And you'll see that when we scrape the rim here without too much problem. Now there are a few occasions where you can drop the handle down. For instance, when I'm doing the shot glasses from walnut that you saw, the last batch was, I believe, 400 pieces. I dropped the handle down, but it's a small diameter, and I'm actually, the surface that I'm scraping with the tool, and when I drop the handle down, it's still way less than 90 degrees. So again, you just have to be aware that where and how you position the scraper. And the other thing is light touch. If you just jab it like so, even if you're in a negative 90 degrees, you will have a catch. Also, using a lot of the edge at once will grab the wood. So light touch. The way I think this is, I'm like almost not trying to touch the wood with the scraper. That's how I'm sort of imagining the light pressure. So you're just gliding over the surface with the scraper. So that's especially on the inside, where sometimes you just cannot have the best possible surface with the scraper due to the wood and the grain orientation and everything just doesn't work out that way. Then you use the cutting tools like gouges and stuff like that. Again, scrapers, I'll show you how I use it on the inside and how we scrape the rim here. So I hope this is a good angle, so you will be able to see the inside, how the scraper is actually cutting or scraping away, hopefully very clearly. Now let me just grab a pencil real quick, and what I'm trying to, when I'm raising the tool rest, I always, and I mean always, want to be scraping on the center line. That's this line, or slightly above it in this area here. So if you're beneath that, even if you are, let's say, for the sake of the demo, I'll drop the rest, the furthest that it will go down. And if you position the scraper here, this angle here, when I'm down here, is really close to 90 degrees. So this area that I'm scraping and the top of the tool is, I would say, maybe 91 even degrees. So you are inviting a catch. There are a few turners like Del Stubbs that knows how to turn, let's say, lower down here. But here, if and this is really awkward for me at least, position for the scraper, because I'm way tilting it down. And now this angle here, just get out of the way of the camera. So top of the tool here and the surface that I'm scraping is again way less than 90 degrees. For me, it's just a little bit more difficult to control the gouge here. So what I like to do is stay on the center line or above it. So that's my, let's say, safe zone. And that's whenever you're using standard scraper, that's your best friend here. Now with the negative rake scrapers, you have, since you have the top bevel, you have a little buffer room. I would only imagine that bevel here as a sort of a safety device, because if you drop the handle down by accident, you won't get a catch unless you drop it way down where the top of the bevel is now pointing up in the wood, like much like with the standard scraper, top of the scraper here. So it will again find the grain where it aligns, and it will dig in and split the ball in half. So that maybe the safety feature of a negative rake scraper. But if you're following these simple rules, you should be able to scrape easily with a standard scraper. Now again, I've pointed out a light touch. That's a really key thing here, and you don't want to for instance scrape away all of this wood at once. Use maybe something like a square inch scraper and just go all the way down. It's a bad practice. Just go in maybe 4, 5, 6 mil increments and do it that way. Just let the wood come down to a scraper nice and gently, and you'll be fine. Now this is a relatively thin ball. It's around 8 to 6 mil. From here it's a little bit thicker, going down to a little thinner portion. I don't like using, when it's that thin, scraper flat here on the rim here, but I will show you that it can be done, again, if you're following these simple rules. That's why when you see Richard Raffin going with the scraper on the inside, he says he raised the rest up slightly. So that's, again, when I'm tilting down with the scraper, I want to be on that center line or slightly above that center line. And again, you want to have that tilt so the handle is higher than the cutting edge here. The top of the scraper is going down, let's say. So that's your safe zone. And I'll show you alternative way, or what I would call, because it's almost like a negative rake scraper. When you tilt the standard scraper up on its side, it won't dig in. It doesn't have that tendency to go in, straight in. So it's a nice, safe way and clear way of getting the best surface here if you have ridges or anything like that and you're unavailable to cut it with the gouge. So start the lathe, and just to show you, I'm just quickly going to scrape here the rim. Getting really fine dust. I'm getting shavings flying off, but the dust is sticking onto the scraper, so that's always a good sign. I'm supporting the back of the bowl just in case. So light pressure. Again, I don't like doing the rim at this stage because you never know. And a little shear action for the side here. So that's nice and clean. And so now we can focus on the inside. So I always like to do, as you saw here, before I start to hollow, to get most of the rim done. So this is the burr straight from the grinder, and we're going to change it along the way for a hook. So again, you see the center line, the hole in the very center. Again, I'm pitched down with the scraper. This is now negative 90 degrees to the surface that I'm scraping, and I'm on center line or slightly above it. Now these were slightly rougher cuts with a little bit more pressure, just to remove the bulk of the wood. So now light pressure, just going over gliding over the surface. Trying to get a nice flowing curve from the top to the bottom. I have a little lump in this area, so I'll support the back of the bowl with my fingers. And here where the rim is, again, you have to have that negative 90 degrees. Light pressure, you see all the fine dust, and hope you can see, although this is a very close match to the shape of the scraper here, I'm getting, let's just stop the lathe for a second, trying to show you this the best way I can. So I hope you can see a streak of dust going here, then a little separation between them, then again, then a little separation, and that way you know you're only using a portion of the scraper at once. So you can see maybe here 4 mil, here it's a little less, here it's again 4 mil, here it's again a little less. So it's a good indicator that you're using less of the edge than it. Of course, this if I point all of this edge here at once, it will be a catch. It's just way too much of the edge to the wood here. So you just want to have that a little bit of edge exposed to the wood, and you can see that's pretty good surface. Oops, pretty good surface here where I scraped it. Pretty good. Here it's a little bit rougher, but we'll fix that. So the way we can improve here is going into shear scrape mode, so tilting it up to, let's say, roughly 45 degrees. Again, don't force it, give it some time. You can see all the fine speck of dust. So that's pretty smooth, the very top edge here. So I hope you can see that's here where my finger is. Pretty decent surface. So what I'll do is just hone away the top burr here, and I'll pull the burr with the hook. So now I have here pulled burr with a burnisher, which it's my preferred method of having a burr here. But what can happen is, especially if you're not familiar with the feeling of pressure with the scraper onto wood, it can dig in real fast, and it does give the best possible surface on the, much like a card scraper on in woodworking, but it does again need practice on light pressure, and just let the wood come down to a tool and scrape that way instead of forcing anything. And again, you'll see a little bit of different color appearing here where it scrapes. Again, if you're not familiar, or if you're just starting out, having the grinder, a burr straight from the grinder, is the best option. It won't be as grabby, and later, once you sort of get familiar with the scraper, then you can pull the burr and hone it. Hone the burr is another great option or alternative to grinder. So my method of having the burr on top is, first I always go to a grinder. So before I do any work, or if I sharpen the tools before I start the work, I always go to a grinder and go underneath here with the bevel and get a nice smooth top edge, maybe 3-4 mil, get a nice single facet, and that way I'll get the burr on top here. Once that burr is gone, then I pull the burr with a burnisher, and once that burr is gone, then I hone the edge with a diamond hone. After diamond hone, I always go to maybe one more time with the hone, and after that I go to a grinder again. So that's how I go about with scrapers. So now you'll see that a little different color. And you can see by the shavings that it's a little bit more aggressive. That's really nice and smooth. Here I can go with this burr, but just be careful. Light pressure. Here I'll tilt it up on its side. A little vibration. So just go easier. So that's nice and smooth. A little ridge here where my thumb is. Again, I'll go shear scraping. Let's see the surface now. So it's, hope you can see, pretty good. There is a little different kind of color, as you can see here, where we go against the grain, and should be on the same on the other side, which is not as much. So we can improve on that by going again a little lighter. So light pressure. I'm slowing down so I go through that vibration. So I hope you can see, although it's a little different texture, this will sand out quite easily. And just to show you, we'll go with 180 grit on the inside real quick. Grit. So I see a little line here. So this side you can see still a little bit more sanding, and this side we have these ridges here. So we can go back to a scraper, but more often than not it's easier to just sand that away. I might have to go with 120 grit. I think I'll go with the power sanding on the inside real quick. So this is 180 grit on a sanding pad. So you see that's almost gone, a little bit here, and almost gone here. Grab a fresh bit of sandpaper. So that's pretty much sanding done with 180 grit on the inside. Still a little patch here. I'll actually just go the other way. There we go, so now that's gone. And I'll just progress through different grits. But you can see that's 180 grit done on the inside, real quick. And inertia sander. So I'll just take it off the chuck, and we can apply some oil. That's how you use standard scrapers on the inside. Sometimes you just cannot avoid getting the little like pulled up grain, what I would call those better. If you just go over with the fingers, you will feel them smoother on one direction but rougher on the other direction. Usually what happens, since the scraper is only linear and scrapes in one direction, you will indefinitely get some of that marks on the end grain, that portion that is against the grain when we use the tools on the inside. So you just cannot avoid that. But on some timbers like pear, like maple, it's a little less obvious and a little bit more forgiving, let's say. On cherry, it's sometimes terrible to use the scraper near the rim unless you're shear scraping, but I like to use, let's say on cherry, on top half, most definitely 99% gouge, then scrape the bottom. And on some timbers like let's say Osage orange, you can scrape pretty much everything, inside, outside, do whatever you want to do. With the red heart that I've tried, a little tiny bowl or cross grain work, it also scrapes no matter how you present the tool, or sorry, not how we present, but it's either on the inside or outside. So again, depends on the wood. Oak is quite common, but you saw even with that little mark, the sanding didn't take too long, and just make sure you reduce that to a minimum. If you have a big patch of that kind of grain, then it's a no-no, and you have to go either with the gouge or a scraper again and finesse that. If it doesn't work out, then you can always use 80 grit sandpaper, but that's something that I'm trying to avoid. The bottom of the sandpaper line is 120 for me, and that's where I stop. I don't go 80 grit because it just leaves the deep scratches and doesn't look very good, and it also can mess up the shape and the lines, the crisp lines, and so on. So hope this video sort of clarifies this a little bit, and hope you enjoy it, and see you in the next one.